I'm feeling great pleasure to be in this conversation today. It's bringing three experts, different backgrounds, different lenses, different challenges. So, and I'm excited to hear about their perspectives to the questions today. But let me start with the international perspective with Mike. Mike, in your keynote, you showed examples of three organizations that used AI differently, right? To multiply, to deliver, and to rebuild their mission. But you have also seen plenty of mission-driven organizations try and stall, right?
Yes.
Can you, from your experience, maybe tell us more about what that stall usually look like from inside an organization?
Absolutely, Elias. It's a great question. And the timing is impeccable. I spent the last 2 days at the MIT AI conference. And so you can imagine that, we're really also trying to look at what success looks like and what failure looks like. I think the first thing I want to say is that when you adopt AI, it is not a technology transformation. It is a human or cultural transformation. This is the first time in history where we are dramatically changing the nature of work. And I think that in and of itself really makes it much more challenging. And a lot of people don't understand that. So one of the big mistakes people make is, they buy a set of tools, they distribute those tools, and they just assume that their employees are automatically going to understand how to use them without any governance strategy, without any training or upskilling. And so it's not about technology capability. It's a far more extensive process. And I want to go back to what Yosr said, right? It's got to be around purpose. Everything has to be driven by the purpose of the organization. The second key piece is that you don't bolt AI onto a workflow that was not designed for it. AI requires that we reimagine the way that we structure the organization, the way that we service our stakeholders. And so rather than taking an old process and saying, well, let's just layer AI on top of that, that's a recipe for failure right out of the gate. And then something that we heard about in the barometer as well is, not just AI readiness, but data readiness. And do you have a data architecture? Have you thought through intentionally and deliberately how you're going to collect data, store data, process it, protect it, consume it, share it? And so a lot of organizations just haven't thought about their data in a very strategic or intentional way. And so I'd say these are some of the key challenges. But if I was to summarize everything, right, the AI seems to intimidate people. Somehow they think it's beyond their grasp. And I think people need to get more educated on how AI can be useful by attending workshops like this or going to hackathons like the one that Aditya had mentioned, right? And just understanding it's not magic, okay? And just to take away some of its overarching intimidation, I think would go a long way to helping people see just how powerful it is. My experience has been, I sit in a room with a group of executives. I have them lay hands on AI in the context of their organization, their role, their function. And within an hour, they have a completely different perspective on how powerful it is. And then they walk away and say, oh my God, I can't believe I wasted 3 years not taking advantage of these superpowers. So you can't learn about this stuff by reading about it. You've got to roll up your sleeves.
Thank you, Mike. I like your invitation to and I'm assuming you're speaking to different levels within the organization to roll up your sleeve and just give it a whirl and see where it goes, right? And some things are foundational before you're able to jump into just using just another tool.
Oh,
thanks,
yeah,
Mike.
and let's be clear. Executive directors, yes, this. I'm talking to you, okay?
Yeah.
You can't lead what you don't understand.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Building on your point, I wanted to jump to Yosr. Yosr, the title of this Fireside chat is Navigating AI for Good Adoption Within Your Organization. And you, as an MSS, have done that. Like we've heard today about the increase in AI readiness among participating organizations, but even more broadly. However, readiness is not adoption. Yeah. In your experience, what are a few common reasons organizations that feel ready do not move?
Honestly, a very good question, especially for the third sector. So AI implementation for third sector organizations is not just a technology conversation. There are, in my opinion, there's three things that really need to be dealt with first. So first of all, financial barriers. Financial constraints remain one of the biggest barriers for NPOs adopting AI because nonprofits or most nonprofits are already focused on fundraising for other things that are key, such as program sustainability, beneficiary services, core operational continuity. So their own team, retaining their own talent and their own team within the organization. So it can be very difficult to raise funding specifically for AI adoption or digital transformation, because a lot of donors are more comfortable funding direct community programs. So that's one point. Another very important point as well is that mission-driven organizations like NMSS, we operate within governance and accountability frameworks. What that means is that even when we want to move quickly, there are several layers of approvals, such as board approvals, budget structures, internal governance requirements. And at the same time, the AI sector moves very quickly, while nonprofits need to balance agility with responsible implementation. So there's different speeds happening here. And I think a third point I'd like to touch on is, and something that most of the speakers here have already touched on, which is organizational readiness. So NPOs actually come in a variety of shapes and sizes, as you know, and move at different speeds. And not everyone is equally prepared to pilot and operationalize AI. So readiness could also depend on things like internal capacity, data infrastructure, digital maturity, as Mike had mentioned. So I think the question today is no longer whether NPOs should adopt AI. It's mainly us looking at how organizations can adopt AI, how quickly can we adapt workflows, and which solutions actually fit within our operational realities. I think that's the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Yosr. It's an interesting point that we need to keep up with the pace of how the world is moving. However, you cannot sacrifice much on the mission, on the grounding of the mission and the work. And I think this is quite a situation third sector entities find themselves in, right? And that would require build up some courage to move forward. But maybe let's want to build up on that point and move to Aditya. Aditya, you work with NMSS to move from, again, as you've shown us, from a challenge to a developed solution. What would a roadmap, right, to Yusr's point, what would a roadmap to support and embolden organizations to move forward with AI adoption look like? From your experience, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Elias, for that question. I think that this is a very logistically important question here, right? Because if we're being honest, if any of us had a perfect roadmap, we'd probably be on a different type of panel. But I think building on what Yusr said, if there's one key takeaway from what we're doing in this engagement with the NMSS is that the roadmap is less about technology and more so about readiness. It really, really, really starts with problem discovery. And I mean real discovery, not just where can we go ahead and sprinkle some AI. But I think the best challenge statements we saw in this program came from teams who were willing to sit with their own operational pain long enough to articulate it clearly. It's a very uncomfortable discussion to have with oneself and one's organization, right? And to that point, Yusra and her team did exactly that. They went through nearly 10 versions of their challenge statement before landing on the right one. Now, once you have that identified, I really believe that you need an internal champion. It's not about just taking an external organization and plugging it in anywhere. You need somebody on the inside who believes in that process. Someone with someone who has enough of the authority to say yes, and enough of the humility to say, I don't know, let's test it out. And then you wanna scope it down to a small pilot, something where you have low risk, clear metrics, and human in the loop set in stone by default. Because finally you're going to end up documenting everything, and then the second AI use case you go ahead and embed in the organization then becomes 10, if not 20 times easier than the first, but only if someone wrote down what happened the first time. I think, in my opinion, the roadmap isn't linear at all. It's a loop. And the organizations that move forward are the ones comfortable running that loop more than once.
Absolutely.
I think you've just laid out what sounds to be a very good roadmap, Aditya. Thank you so much for doing this. Let me move over to Mike. And going back to what Ashwin presented, the data from the barometer, right? It makes, and also to touch a bit on what Yosr had mentioned before. Clearly, third sector organizations in the region, lack a dedicated innovation and AI budget line, and understandably so, if I can say, to what Yosr said, you have conflicting agenda around raising funds, right? So every dollar needs to go to direct impact. But from your experience, I mean, you work a lot with executives and boards, right? And you're a founder yourself. How do you frame honestly an investment in AI for leadership versus a buck to impact? How can we make sense of that? So
yeah. I mean, it's a really great question, right? And the average executive director is going to say, every dollar or every dinar that I spend on AI is one that is not going to, or stakeholder or beneficiary. And I think they're missing the forest for the trees. I think they're just completely misunderstanding the opportunity. So if you go back and you look at these 3 case studies that I modeled, whether it be ECHO or St. Jude or the Michael J. Fox Foundation, right? They have used AI to dramatically expand on their mission, to dramatically impact stakeholders in a far more profound way. So this is not a taking from Peter to pay Paul. We're living in the AI era. Being innovative is no longer a luxury. It is a requirement. The world is changing dramatically. And we have an opportunity to do things we've never been able to do before. If I think about the typical impact organization, they are chronically underfunded. And I think, I don't remember who mentioned this earlier. I think it was Elias. We're seeing productivity gains in employees on standard, workflows of 30 to 40%. So you're getting a tremendous multiplier effect, a lot of leverage, because you've got one person now able to do the job of 2 or 3 people. And so from my perspective, right, this is not about making a trade-off. This is about amplifying the mission. And again, I don't think until they fully lay hands on these tools and they see the benefits within their own organization, they can't understand it. Right? It's not about eliminating labor. It's about amplifying labor. So to me, an AI budget is as much as anything about employee productivity and outreach as it is about technology. Okay? Because part of the AI budget is going to be about, cultural transformation to adopt AI and upskilling. It's not just about buying ChatGPT.
And as long as it's aligned with the core vision, as we've been repeating.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you start with purpose and you start with problem discovery, as we've heard, right? And then very quickly, you can figure out where you can embed AI to amplify the mission, right? And improve the productivity of my team.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. I'm gonna go back to you. I mean, Mike just made the case of increasing investments in AI and innovation, but another important challenge for adoption, the barometer reports, is the lack of talent, and something that you have mentioned as well, right? Which is the sort of gap that this program aims to fill. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society have been paired with Socia, so yourself and Aditya, to work together on that challenge, right? Can you share with us maybe the what made this collaboration work? You coming from your background from NMSS, having your concerns, priorities, barriers, have you, and dealing or working with Socia. Can you share a bit more about that collaboration? What made it work? What you've learned?
Sure. So the good news is at NMSS we were already using AI in one specific form. So we already believed in the fundamental idea that AI can be used for good, which is again why we were intrigued by the title of the program. Our research arm is already funding studies that place AI at the center of advancing MS research. So some examples include AI-driven neuroimaging, AI-driven prediction of MS treatment responses, AI for timely diagnosis. So we already believed in the power of AI. And when we finally created our challenge statement after this program, which centered around, of course, strengthening NMSS's research grant management process, it was really encouraging seeing how Socia responded. I think that was one of the things that really made this work. Socia really understood the broader purpose behind the challenge and really understood what we wanted, where we were coming from, and saw a new perspective. And again, we reminded one another that it wasn't just about building an efficiency tool. It was about strengthening fairness, consistency, transparency for the purpose that we wanted, for the challenge that we had, and strengthening operational capacity within our mission-driven environment. If I can just say two things that really, really made this work,
Please.
And that we really learned was that, and I'll say it again, the number one is AI adoption is not a technology discussion. It's honestly an organizational readiness discussion. I can't highlight that enough. One that needs to be intertwined with purpose, underlining that 5 times maybe. And the second thing is that pilot initiatives don't launch, not because the technology isn't there, I think as Mike had already mentioned, but because there's no alignment on both sides, organizations and startups, between the problem being solved, the need of the end user, and the long-term purpose behind the solution.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you so much. So much. I want to take this to Aditya, to the opposite side of that interaction. Aditya, as a technical person, right, operating at the intersection of impact and technology, right, and you've seen a lot of those. You've worked a lot with such companies or such organizations. What does the organization actually need to have in place before the builder team shows up? What is that anchor that makes your life a tiny bit easier coming into the work?
I think this is something I wish, maybe probably all of us wish someone had asked us before any of our first projects, right? Because the answer would have saved everyone about 3 or 4 weeks of heartache and sleepless nights. I think the thing no one really tells organizations is that builders can build fast, but only if the organization has already done the unglamorous homework of knowing itself. And I think that means 2 or 3 things. I'd say the first thing is to know where your data lives, not in theory, practically. Who owns it? What state is it in today? And who can give us access without scheduling 4 to 5 meetings before finding out, oh, this data doesn't even exist. I don't even know what the password is, for instance. The second thing is to really have a empowered decision maker in the room, whether that be one person, whether that be 10 people. But like I said, we need that change maker on the inside, not just a committee or a steering board that's going to die out and lose interest and I wonder, what's this meeting in my calendar after 4 weeks? We need to know that builders move at the speed of decisions. And if every yes needs 3 layers of approval, the pilot will die of natural causes before launch. And if I may add to that, I think we have to be honest about what success looks like before we even touch a single line of code. Now, whether we write that with AI or ourselves, we have to be honest, and we want to know that, saying that I want to use AI or my organization wants to use AI is not really a goal. We want to reduce the time spent on grant screening by 40% without sacrificing review quality. I think now we can build toward that. If those 2 or 3 things are in place, the builder team can do remarkable work. If they're not, even the best team in the world will just be very efficient at being stuck.
And going in circles.
in loops,
Super.
but in the wrong way.
Thanks. Thank you, Aditya. I mean, it's clearly that even with the best technical teams out there, you still need to do the groundwork internally before anything of value does count. Before I jump into the third part of our conversation, I want to go back to Yosr as the representative of MS Society. Your organization coming into this this program, right, represents a community with very real, very human needs, right? People living with MS. And that's understanding well that the work is very human, very relational, right? Very, very emotional at points. At what point did you feel that AI was a genuine answer to something you were struggling with, rather than just a nice to have, right? A tool with looks flashy and sounds interesting.
That's a great question. So I'd like to just maybe start off by saying that we've just launched our fourth cycle of our research grant program. And that's important to note because we've gone through 4 cycles, which means we've really thought about the process, and we've learned a lot and identified core challenges from our research grant program cycles, and core challenges that needed to be addressed. And this is where I guess our collaboration with Synapse became incredibly exciting for us. We immediately saw the value of using AI not to replace human decision-making for our grant cycle process, but to strengthen and support it. What makes this collaboration meaningful is that the tool is helping us make more accurate and informed funding decisions. And I think this is what takes it away from it just being a tool, and, you know, I guess projecting it towards it having an ultimate, very human mission. And again, the impact extends beyond the process itself. So the more I guess we use AI for mission-driven purposes, you know, the faster we can find the necessary or the right people to be part of this grant cycle. Maybe then, you know, we'll be able to speed up the process of finding the right people, the right projects. You know, at the end of the day, there are people that are funding these research grants for us. And funding research is really a cornerstone of the work we do at NMSS. So if you could, again, use AI to improve our programs or our research grant applications, then that is what's going to lead us to better understanding, better treatment, and maybe one day, hopefully, a cure. So it's not a tool, it's beyond.
Thank you so much, sister. Thank you for sharing. I want to jump to our third part of this discussion. But again, let me go back to the audience and ask them to please input any questions that are surfacing, and we'd love to take it in a few moments. Maybe just to end with a question to Mike and to Aditya. Mike, you teach future leaders of the field at different schools, different reputable schools, Harvard, Brown, Cornell, Columbia, NYU, Abu Dhabi. And right here on this panel, Aditya is a 22-year-old that has already co-founded an AI for social impact company with real partnership with the National MS Society. What are students that you're seeing, right? What do they know about AI, and how do they see and work with AI for mission that older institutional leaders do not necessarily grasp yet?
Yeah. So
what are you seeing there?
Yeah. Aditya is the perfect embodiment of what I'm seeing. So I've been blessed to teach at some world-class institutions for 20 years, both traditional entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. The first thing I've seen is that there is a generational change. I'm going to go back to Yosr's very favorite word, purpose. We have a generation of purpose maximizers. 20 years ago, when I was teaching entrepreneurship, most young men and women, they were doing this to make money. They wanted to have a hot startup. They wanted to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or whoever that might be. God forbid, right? It's the last role model I would want my own kids to look up to. But what I would say is things have changed dramatically in that when we see our students today graduating, we're seeing several things. They are inherently building purpose into their business models, into their organizations. They are so much more environmentally conscious, socially conscious. And so there's been a real sea change in just mindset. The second thing is entrepreneurship is really taking hold. So a statistic that might blow some people away, fully 1/3 of our graduates from Harvard Business School this year are going into the field of entrepreneurship. If you had asked anybody 5 years ago if that would have been the case, they would have thought you were crazy. And I think part of it is because AI is such a superpower. It allows them to take the purpose that makes their lives important, makes their hearts beat faster, and recognize that they can actually build an organization with very low capital and very limited resources in order to be able to fulfill this sense of longing in their own hearts for having impact and having purpose. Now, there's obviously a technology component to this, and we haven't really spoken a lot about vibe coding tools per se, although I'm sure Aditya knows these quite well, where all of us are builders. All of us can build. And so what I would say to all of these chronically understaffed impact organizations is whether you're hanging out in the UAE and you've got people like Aditya running hackathons, or you're anywhere in the world, you don't need to hire full-time employees. You've got so many people that are going to believe in your mission, want to support your mission, and dedicate an immense amount of their time and energy and talent to help you do what you're meant to do. So you can bring in independent people. And so with Aditya, right, 22-year-old young man, incredibly engaged. And to me, he is the embodiment of what we're starting to see come out of these universities today, right? He's a top 1%er for sure. But he's what so many of these young men and women are aspiring to be. And I think it would be malpractice on the part of impact organizations not to reach out and embrace and collaborate with young men and women of this type. Aditya, take it away.
I appreciate that a lot, actually. You flatter me too much. Thanks, Mike.
Good. That's the kind of good relationships that we'd want to see in this community. Aditya, let me end with you before we go to the Q&A segment. As a young, passionate founder, right? How do you see that works again a lot with AI, with purpose, passionate organizations? How do you see the future pathways of AI developing? That's from one side, right? The technology component, where do you see it going? And from another one, from your perspective as probably the younger person on this call, right? How do you see the evolution of AI opening up opportunities to the youth, right? So what is that future state, if you want, looking like from where you sit for people like you?
This conversation has been extremely enthralling, and the only way to do justice to Mike's last point is to really ricochet off of that, right? And I'm very biased here, and if I want to ricochet off of that, I'm going to try and infect everyone here with that same bias, right? So, in my opinion, I think the most underrated shift happening right now is that AI has sort of collapsed this distance that we used to see between having an idea and going and raising a Series A, Series B to go ahead and build it, right? What used to need a team of 20 or 100 or 1,000 a year, 5 years or 10 years at a serious budget can now be done by a small team, even as small as one person in weeks. That's not a small change. That's literally I would call that a generational redistribution of who gets to build and how they do it, right? For young people, but I won't even say young. I would say people who are young in AI don't necessarily have to be young by age. You could be a doctor practicing for 50 years and you might decide to pivot to technology. You are still young and nascent in the field of AI. And the opportunity isn't just to use AI, because that part is easy. The real opportunity is to build with it for the problems older institutions have either deprioritized or stopped seeing altogether. So we have mental health, accessibility, multiple sclerosis, regional language tools, civic infrastructure, where institutions only in the third sector are building. And because of those commercial ties, as I mentioned in one of my earlier points, we're not really seeing much engagement of what we call state of the art in AI today being engaged there. And I think that's exactly why this program matters the most. Um, the conversations I like to have are sort of centric to this. The barrier to entry is gone, right? So what matters now is really taste and being close enough to real problem statement to discern it and
Mhm.
actually understand it. And honestly, youth have an unfair advantage on at least two of those three. Um, the third one, judgment, really. That's why programs like this one exist, so we don't have to learn it alone. And I think that's the way forward for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aditya. I really love the point on generation redistribution, right? And I think that's very powerful, and it holds really it opens pathways and opportunities. And I really like this mental framing on things as we look at AI, and as we look how it marries well with purpose, with mission, and with the values. Right, there's a generational value shift as well. What you said, Mike, that is happening. Thank you all so much. We still have a few minutes left, and we have a set of questions coming in from the audience. But maybe then we start with Yosr. The question here on how much buy-in do you have from your leadership team, and how important is this buy-in to move things forward? And I think this is to your earlier point on AI adoption. Can you speak a bit more on the leadership team buy-in, and how what was that buy-in? Was it only financing? Was it support? How was that?
So I can't say much, unfortunately, in terms of how much buy-in, but what I can say is that leadership support definitely supports our main mandate, which is to work across raising awareness, reducing stigma for people living with MS, developing resources for the community, but also developing resources for our own national MS Society. So internally, and like our funding does go towards our innovative research for the UAE, which is of course highly backed by our leadership, 100% supportive. So yeah, we're actually working more towards a more system-wide approach, and that's all I can say right now.
Super. Thank you for a question for Mike. This one is about what signals tell you that an organization is truly ready for implementation and not just exploration. And sorry, Mike, if any of the other panelists want to come in on any questions, please do feel free to add. Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just let me re-articulate, make sure. So what indicates a readiness level beyond exploration? Is that right?
What signals tell you that an organization is truly ready for implementation?
Yeah. So we go back to the question that was just asked. I mean, senior leadership needs to be bought in, period. Okay. If senior leadership is not bought in, nothing is going to happen. So first and foremost, right, and I've seen this repeatedly, right? I've led several hundred exec ed AI workshops across the world. And often what we see is in the early stages, the senior leaders are trying to tell their employees, this is what you need to go do. And then the employees don't go do it. It's only when senior leadership starts modeling the behavior that they expect to see within their organization and making commitments that they truly believe that this is critical, nothing will happen. Okay. Second thing is when senior leaders not only model behavior, but they build in OKRs or they build in KPIs into the leaders' monthly, quarterly, annual metrics. And now they're saying we're holding you accountable to bring AI into your function, into your role, and we're going to measure how you use it. And we're going to measure the impact that's going to come out of the use in your team or your role, right? I think until, so really what you're asking is how do we move from innovation theater to real execution? And execution is when people are held accountable to get stuff done. Okay. I think that's the short answer.
Yes, accountability as a driver. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike. Another question for you, Mike, but I also ask Aditya to come in on this one. Is there any difference between the process of AI adoption versus the process of digital transformation, pre-AI, when you look at it from the organizational lens? And if yes, in what ways is the AI adoption process different from the digital transformation one?
Yeah. So, I mean, digital transformation is a big suitcase term that's been around since the era of the web. And so this is something that many organizations have, even up until the time of COVID, right? We've known about the critical importance of digital transformation, but even in COVID time, a lot of organizations had a 25-year time frame runway, and they failed at it. They just said, we'll get to it eventually. Okay. So AI is just the next phase of digital transformation. But if you've not gone through digital transformation, we talked about data readiness, right? If you haven't worked on data readiness, then you're not ready for AI transformation. So there are some fundamental planks in the digital transformation, playbook that you have to have ready before you can start to layer AI, right? And I love what Aditya said, right? You sit in 10 meetings and you finally realize, oh, we really don't have data. Like, oh my God, we couldn't figure that out on day one. So to me, that's, they're complementary, but AI is, but what's important, I think, to understand is AI is doubling in capacity every 4 months. For a guy that spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, this is beyond unprecedented. And so the rate of change required to have AI transformation successfully occur is profoundly different because of this rapid acceleration of the capabilities. What was true in December is no longer true as we sit here in the end of middle of May. So it makes it really challenging.
Aditya, would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, so I think there's two lenses through which you look at the enablement of AI in any industrial or economic or whether it be third sector setting, right? So there's two philosophies. I think digital transformation orients itself around here's what we've been doing for 30 years. I want to automate this task with AI. I want to do it the same way. I want to touch point the same systems, take the same path, the same happy path. But now a human's going to do that redundant work instead of an AI is going to do that redundant work instead of a human, and that takes that human out and places them somewhere where they're doing more of audit level work, ensuring compliance, and that's where you get quality of work. But there's this new term that's coming around as we go closer to what we call AGI, or AI that's capable to reason and think on its own on human terms. So right now, you wouldn't trust ChatGPT to go and run a panel for you, right? But it can help you with the script. That's the adoption of AI. But there's also this new narrative around reimagining processes with AI first. Yeah. Now, if a process has been being done for 30 years, like, okay, let's talk about a call center, right? You have 300 different people in a call center performing calls and whatnot. Now, when you talk about reimagining that with AI, how about having one central agent that does all the redundant work of calling, qualifying a lead, for instance, and then you have those 300 people to deal with the actual business use case that comes out of that. So you're really wasting less time for your clients, for instance, and you're wasting less time of the employees, less manual work for them. They're not stagnating manually. And I think this is the next step forward in what we're going to see in digital transformation. It's when you're not gonna just reimagine, you're not gonna just rewrite your processes, putting an AI label on everything, but these processes are gonna be broken down and built from the ground up in a completely new fashion, which no one on this call right now can really know today. It's really a process that, to add on to Michael's point, something we call Moore's law. Every practically 1.5 years, the stage of data, the power, the maximum power of computing that we see doubles. So we can't really know what's going to happen in the next year because it's going to be doubly as good as what we have right now. And
Yeah.
that's the philosophy we have to look at.
Yeah. AI is Moore's law on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
How I think about it. Yeah.
And I mean, one thing that makes me think of is that it's now a question of reimagination rather than anything else, right? And it's just what's in our heads, how far can we push, what can we imagine, not rethink but imagine, right? And reimagine altogether. And that is something that we need to unshackle probably in our own psyches, right? And our own bodies and our own experiences.
Yeah,
Aditya,
Elias, let me leave people with,
please.
I think, a quote that really embodies what you just said, right? There's a futurist here in Boston known as Alvin Toffler. And his quote is, the illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write. It is those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think we need to do a lot of unlearning in order to imagine what the future of work looks like before we can reimagine and reinvent it. And it's not easy.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me end with one last question to Aditya, because I do want to end on the students and the youth-focused question before handing it over back to the startAD team. I have a question here. For students interested in AI and social impact, where do you think we create the most value today, even before having years of experience?
This is really touch pointing on something I thought to, or I alluded to earlier, in that right now, the path to enablement, the path to creating something, you do not need to go out and climb a corporate ladder to go from engineer to manager to director to then understand how the process works from the top down. Today, you can go into GPT or Claude, your LLM of choice. Ask it, okay, this is Microsoft, this is their QA team. How does it operate from the top to bottom? It'll tell you everything, the roles needed, the tools used. It'll glean all of that experience and dish it out to you in a matter of the same amount of seconds as it would have taken years, right, prior to generative AI. And if you really want to create something in social impact, I think it's really that. Now that we don't have an ideation and execution sprint happening, sequentially, they're happening at the same time. You think of something, you build it, and you don't like it, or you want to add something to it, you keep reprompting, or you talk to people, you network. And I want to link this to another question. Somebody asked that the NMSS and social partnership came through a structured program, right? For organizations that do not have access to that kind of infra, what is the best way to find the right technical partner? Now, there's one thing that AI has yet to replace, and that's its pitfall right now. And I really believe that would never entirely be replaced. In that, you may know everything with or without AI, you can know everything, but sometimes it's not what you know, but rather who you know, right? In the UAE, we have this concept called wasta. A wasta is like, somebody who knows somebody who can get you a connection to do something that's actually meaningful, right? So the best advice is to you like something, you build it. Just go ahead. You don't need 10 people who believe in you. You don't need $1 million in funding. You don't need 1,000 people to tell you you're right. You just need you. You don't need to wait for permission to say, okay, is this an idea worth building? If it matters to you, there's 7 or 8 billion people on Earth. There's going to be at least a few million others that it matters to as well, right? You go ahead and build. And the thing is, now it's exceedingly easy, despite COVID, despite the whole ongoing situation we have in the Middle East. People are still connecting through LinkedIn, through online forums such as this one. I would say go out and make those connections. You never know when there's somebody who's going to resonate with you, who's also able to place you in that same room where you can, let's say, pitch that idea and actually take it to execution. I think it just starts with just building, freehand. You choose something, you build it, but make sure you're doing more than what your AI can do for you. Go out and network, speak to people, the human touch. I think when you imbibe and marry those two together, you're really gonna get the chance to build something like Socia, because This is not just something that only I would have built. If anybody else came along with the same vision at the same time, they would have done it probably even better than myself and my team. Adam, who's on this call as well as a participant. And that's really the philosophy behind Synapse. If I didn't know Rami, if I didn't have that catch up, I would really never be inspired to apply to this program with the Socia team, and we would never have been here with the amazing NMSS team here. It's just a matter of using AI to its fullest, not waiting for somebody to tell you, okay, this is good to build, and just going out and finding all the people you might want to connect with, because there is always somebody who knows somebody who's interested in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we still have a few questions from participants, but I am sorry we are running a bit over late, and it's already 3:30 a.m. Where you are, Mike. So thank you for powering.
I didn't notice, Elias. I didn't notice. Yeah.
Well, happy us. Happy us. Thank you so much for our panelists. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Aditya, for sharing bits and pieces of wisdom and your experience with us and with the audience.